The Florida that postcards don't show you is made of thick, humid, and impenetrable vegetation, where urban progress often collides with swamps that have guarded secrets for decades. In 2007, on the outskirts of Fort Myers, the tranquility of a densely wooded area was shattered by a discovery that challenged the logic of public safety. What began with a single white bone under the scorching sun revealed itself to be a meticulously organized clandestine cemetery containing the remains of 8 men. This isn't just a story about bones. It's about a predator who used social invisibility as his greatest ally, prepared to enter the Hog Trail, a place where evil didn't just pass through, but decided to take root. On March 23, 2007, a land surveyor performing routine measurements for infrastructure expansion in Fort Myers stumbled upon a scene that looked like something out of an archaeological nightmare. Between the scrub palms and oaks draped in Spanish moss, he spotted what appeared to be a polished stone. But as he drew closer, the eye sockets of a human skull stared back at him. The workers' initial panic gave way to an unprecedented police mobilization in Lee County as investigators realized this was not an isolated body. The area, locally nicknamed Hog Trail due to the wild pigs that churned the soil, was about to surrender secrets that had been buried under layers of pine needles in silence for years. As forensic anthropologists carefully cleared the soil, the arrangement of the bodies began to reveal a disturbingly methodical mind behind the massacre. The skeletons were not randomly tossed. They had been laid out in an almost perfect straight line, separated by intervals that suggested a planned disposal ritual carried out over several years. This geometry of horror indicated that the killer was in no rush. He returned to the site repeatedly, treating that trail as his private sanctuary for human trophies. The precision of the body placement sent a chill down the detectives' spines. They weren't hunting an impulsive amateur, but a collector of lives. The Fort Myers environment, with its extreme fluctuations of humidity and heat, acted as both an agent of destruction and preservation, complicating immediate analysis. While some bones were bleached white and clean, indicating years of exposure to the elements, others still showed signs of tissue that allowed pathologists to estimate more recent dates of death. The brush was so thick that, despite being only a few yards from busy roads, the bodies remained hidden for nearly 2 decades. It was a cruel reminder that absolute isolation can exist just steps away from civilization, requiring only the shroud of geographical and social neglect. The soil of Fort Myers acted as a vault of bones and unanswered questions, where the vegetation grew nourished by what remained of those the world chose not to look for. Every inch of earth removed by experts brought to light a chronology of silent pain, written by a hand that knew every shortcut and every shadow of that godforsaken swamp. The trail, once just a path for wild animals, became a monument to human depravity, a place where life lost its value and death became a macabre display of control. Identifying the victims proved to be one of the greatest challenges in Florida's forensic history, as the killer chose targets who lived in the shadows of society. They were men who inhabited the fringes of Fort Myers, laborers, drifters, or individuals struggling with addiction and mental instability. This victim profile is what criminologists call low-criteria victims, people whose disappearances are rarely reported immediately to authorities. The Hog Trail predator was a master at identifying vulnerability, knowing that no one would miss these men until it was far too late for any rescue. Through digital facial reconstructions and advanced mitochondrial DNA testing, investigators finally managed to give names to 3 of the 8 men: Eric Coet, Gerard Joyce, and John Dono. One Coet was a man who traveled the country and had fragile family ties, which made it easy for him to vanish without a trace for years. Gerard Joyce was known in the region, but his nomadic lifestyle served as camouflage for the final act of violence he suffered. Giving names to these bones was an act of poetic justice, but it also revealed the scale of the tragedy. Men of different ages and backgrounds united only by their tragic end at the hands of a stranger. The total absence of clothing, jewelry, or any form of personal identification at the disposal sites suggested the killer carried out a process of total dehumanization of his victims. He stripped them, not just to avoid forensic evidence, but to remove what remained of their identities before abandoning them to their fate and the elements. The investigation expanded to neighboring states, searching for missing persons who fit the physical profile of the other 5 men who still remained nameless. With every new detail, it became clear that Fort Myers was merely the final stop on a journey of horror that could have begun very far away. The tragedy of the Hog Trail lies in the ease with which a human being can become invisible, requiring only that their life be marked by loneliness and the lack of a safe harbor to return to. The killer used social disregard as his primary weapon, operating in a vacuum of indifference where every man taken was just another shadow dissipating in the humid Florida heat. Identifying these remains became a mission to restore the dignity stolen by a monster, turning evidence numbers back into stories of sons, brothers, and lives that once held dreams. Analysis of the surviving bones revealed little about the exact cause of death, which, ironically, said a lot about the killer's tactics. There were no bullet holes, blunt force trauma, or deep cuts that reached the skeleton, leading experts to believe the cause was strangulation or asphyxiation. This method requires physical proximity and a dominating strength, suggesting the killer felt a need to feel life leaving his victims' bodies. The Hog Trail killer was not a long-distance sniper. He was an intimate aggressor, someone who looked into the eyes of those he killed while exercising ultimate power. An FBI profiler suggested the suspect was likely a white male, middle-aged at the time of the crimes, with a job that allowed him to move through rural areas without raising suspicion. He likely owned a truck or an off-road vehicle, essential for penetrating the thick hog trail brush without getting stuck or attracting attention. His routine was marked by normalcy. He could be the trusted mechanic, the delivery driver, or the quiet neighbor who never caused trouble. This banality of evil is what made the investigation so frustrating. The monster didn't have horns. He wore a work uniform and smiled politely at the grocery store. The temporal consistency of the body deposits, which seemed to span the period between 1994 and the mid-2000s, indicated a killer with a long and controlled cooling-off period. He didn't kill out of a frenzied impulse, but according to an internal psychological need he could manage between one crime and the next. The disposal site functioned as a physical diary of his conquests, a place where he could return mentally or physically to relive the moment of absolute dominance over another life. Each body was a chapter in his narrative of power, written in blood and hidden by the shadows of the Fort Myers trees. In the silence of the crime labs, the bones whispered of a calm and relentless force, a presence that did not seek the noise of weapons, but the absolute silence of a breath's end. The predator moved with the confidence of one who knows the impunity offered by the swamp's geography, treating human life as a disposable resource in his quest for a sick and solitary pleasure. He was the architect of a private graveyard, where each shallow grave was proof of his superiority over those society had already condemned to oblivion long before he ever appeared. Have you ever stopped to think that the videos you just watched, with flawless scripts and engaging narrations, might have been created by someone who never even touched a camera or a microphone? There is a new digital elite profiting heavily behind the scenes of YouTube and social media, building massive channels without ever showing their faces or spending thousands of dollars on equipment. While most people are frozen by the fear of being on camera, these individuals are using the hidden power of artificial intelligence to generate automated content that works and earns for them 24 hours a day. The secret to dominating this game isn't about having a famous face. It's about knowing how to command the right tools to create scripts, voices, and visuals that magnetically hold the audience's attention. I've gained access to a strategic method that reveals the exact roadmap for you to build your own invisible digital empire. Mastering AI to turn clicks into a real source of income, it is the perfect opportunity for those seeking financial and geographical freedom without having to deal with the pressure of being a public figure on the internet. Best of all, you can seize this opportunity right now for a symbolic price. The complete training is under an exclusive promotion, dropping from $97 to just $17. This is your passport to unlocking the knowledge you need to start your professional journey with AI today. Click the first link in the description to secure your spot while this discount is still active. As investigators searched for the guilty, one name began to resonate with terrifying force: Daniel Conahan. Already known to authorities as the Hog Trail Murderer from a neighboring county, Conahan was already on death row for an identical crime. He had a habit of luring men to remote areas with the promise of money for nude photos, only to tie them up and torture them to death. The pattern of selecting vulnerable men, the use of isolated wooded areas, and the disposal method were so similar that it seemed impossible to be a coincidence. Conahan operated with a cruelty that went beyond murder. He sought total humiliation. Although formally convicted of only one homicide, the case of Richard Montgomery, the physical and geographical similarities to the 8 Fort Myers victims were striking. Montgomery was found in a wooded area, tied up and mutilated, suggesting that what happened at Hog Trail could be just an extension of a much broader criminal career. If Conahan was indeed responsible, the Hog Trail crimes would be the opening chapters of his final descent into homicidal madness. Despite the circumstantial evidence, Conahan never admitted to the 2007 murders. He maintains a posture of absolute denial, a final power play against the justice system. For Lee County investigators, the lack of a confession or irrefutable physical proof, such as DNA left on the degraded bones, keeps the case technically unsolved regarding the other 5 men. The possibility of a copycat or a partner in crime has also never been fully ruled out, leaving a cloud of uncertainty over whether the true and only monster is actually behind bars. Daniel Conahan is the face that haunts the nights of those seeking justice for the victims of Fort Myers. A man whose smile in archive photos hides the soul of a cold-blooded and calculating predator. Even locked away on death row, his silence continues to torture the souls of those seeking answers, leaving a trail of uncertainty that stretches across every inch of earth removed in that cursed forest. His shadow over the Hog Trail is an indelible mark of an evil that refuses to be fully revealed, keeping the mystery alive while time erases the traces in the Florida swamps. As the years passed, the Hog Trail case became a showcase for both the power and limitations of modern forensic science. The Florida Forensic Anthropology Laboratory continues to review the remains, now utilizing stable isotope analysis. This technique allows scientists to determine through the chemical composition of the bones where the victims lived and what they ate in the final years of their lives. This helps track the geographical origin of men who could have come from anywhere in North America, narrowing the search field for missing persons. Furthermore, genetic genealogy, the same technique that captured the Golden State Killer, is being applied to the DNA profiles of the remaining victims. By uploading these profiles to public genealogy databases, detectives hope to find distant relatives who could lead to the final identification of John Doe 2, 3, and so on. Every new attempt is a race against time. As missing person files age and the family members who could provide reference DNA samples pass away, taking with them the last living connection to these victims. The site in Fort Myers looks different today. New construction and roads have altered the landscape, but for the veteran police officers who worked the case, the soil will always feel stained. The impact of these murders changed state laws regarding how missing persons are registered and how unidentified bodies are processed. The tragedy of Hog Trail forced the system to recognize that every individual, regardless of their social status, deserves a full investigation. Science has become the voice of those who were silenced, fighting so that death on the trail is not the final chapter of their existence. Every technological advance is a digital pickaxe digging into the past in search of a truth that refuses to die, transforming DNA into a bridge between oblivion and the memory of men who once had a name. The fight against time is relentless, but the determination of scientists and detectives keeps the flame of hope alive, refusing to accept that 8 lives can be reduced to simple evidence stored in cardboard boxes. Forensic justice is slow, but it is the only barrier remaining against the total erasure of those society abandoned. The story of the Hog Trail murders remains one of the deepest wounds of Southwest Florida, a reminder that paradise has its zones of shadow. The case is a study in human vulnerability and how a lack of community connections can create the perfect environment for a predator to thrive. If these men had someone looking for them at the time of their disappearance, perhaps the body count would never have reached 8. The fear that the skunk ape or other legends provoke is small compared to the real, tangible horror a man with a pickup truck and a rope was able to inflict. We conclude this account with a reflection on collective responsibility. The Hog Trail Killer did not win entirely because, despite his efforts to erase his victims, we are still here talking about them. The fact that we are seeking their names and telling their stories is proof that humanity, eventually, turns back to look at those left on the road. The Fort Myers mystery may never have all its I's dotted and T's crossed, but the lesson it leaves regarding vigilance and compassion is eternal and necessary so that the brush never hides such malice again. The trail may be covered by asphalt or new growth, but the lessons of 2007 continue to guide the steps of those seeking a safer world. Florida will remain a place of intense light, but now we know we must look carefully at where the shadows are longest. May the memory of Eric Howitt, Gerard Joyce, and all the others who still wait for a name inspire us to never again allow anonymity to be the final destiny of any human being. The mystery remains, but our search for the truth is what prevents evil from triumphing over time. The end of this journey leaves us with the image of a forest that saw the worst of us, but also saw the best of our quest for justice. The Hog Trail is a scar on the land and soul of Fort Myers, a place of silence that demands to be heard for generations. May the answers still missing one day arrive like the sea breeze that clears the heavy swamp air at dawn. Until then, we will continue to watch, remember, and tell, so that the shadows have nowhere left to hide. Evil may have had its moment on the trail, but the light of truth is the only one that will have the final word in this story. The complexity of the Hog Trail murders reminds us that real monsters don't need masks to hide in plain sight. Do you believe Daniel Conahan was solely responsible for these deaths? Or do you think there is still a killer loose on the Florida backroads? Your opinion is vital to keeping the debate on these forgotten cases alive. Leave a like if you appreciate documentaries that seek the truth behind the horror. Comment with your theories. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue uncovering the next chapters of the world's greatest criminal mysteries together.